Hi! So I said I would be reviewing the Song of Ice and Fire series, and so I finished the first book. I have read these before, so I'm rereading these in order to review them, and also because the series, the new season just started, and I want to refresh my memory before going into it. Anyway, so there will probably be some minor spoilers. I'm gonna try not to spoil anything too major as far as either the show or the book is concerned, but I'll probably talk about both of them. So yeah. So Game of Thrones, or A Game of Thrones, is probably pretty daunting to people who have seen the show or who know about the show because watching a show it's 10 hours. That's 10 hours and you're done. You can watch the first season, and the first book is going to take significantly longer than that to read. The first book is a little over 800 pages long, and it has really tiny print. Uh, and that can be really daunting to people. It was even daunting to me. The series had just come out or had just been announced, but I figured I want to read the books before I watch the series because for me, I wanted to have some context as to what was going on. And I like reading. I like reading stuff before I see it, usually. And so I picked this up and I thought, oh my god, it is huge. I have a few books that are this big that I've read, but you never know going into it because this has been compared to, oh gosh, yeah, T.H. White's The Once and Future King, which is about King Arthur, and it's a very long story and it kind of rambles on. I was worried that this would be very verbose and would ramble on, and I found that it wasn't really the case. It's actually a very easy read. There's some vocabulary in there that you might be a little confused about, but you can get it from the context. Mostly it's just like technical terms for armor or specific type of horses or things like that that aren't really that necessary to know about when you're reading this. You don't need to know things to enjoy this. I find that it's a fairly I wouldn't say a quick read because it is very long, but when you get into it, I mean you can go through quite a few chapters in one sitting just because it's so interesting. And it grabs you from the beginning, and you're very interested to see what's happening with these characters. And if you've seen the show, I mean, they kind of set it up. It's like, oh, okay, it's just going along, and then boom, something happens. And that's what happens in most of these books, is that you will go along the story and something will happen, and then you go along, people reacting that something happening, or people in other parts of the world who don't know what's happening, going through their lives. So that's the big thing with this book. It's split up amongst a couple of different characters, and it's from their perspective. It's not first person, but it's from the third person limited perspective from particular characters. And I think that's a great way to do the story because the world is so big. You have the Seven Kingdoms, which is the main place where the stories are taking place, but they're so big, and you have a couple of different locations where they may not get the same information for weeks or months because the only method of communication is either sending a messenger or sending a raven, which neither of those are super fast. And then you also have another character who's off on a completely different continent, and you're learning about her story. And so she doesn't get news until way after the fact. So it's very interesting, and all that does connect. It's all this big overarching story, and I think that's another thing I really do like, is that it's a big book and it covers a lot of material, but you want all of that material. Especially after you finish the first book, you see that the second book is about 1,000 pages long. It's 200 pages longer than the first one, and you think, oh yes, there's gonna be more material. I love this. It's one of those type of books you want it to be really big because you want it to cover more information. Because of the way it happens, you just need all of that information from all the different characters. So I would say that if you've seen the series, it's definitely a good idea to read the books because there is more information, and there's some changes that go on between the book and the show. that are, I mean, most of the changes the show has made have been perfectly fine. Like, I don't have a problem with it. Most of the people I've talked to who've read the books don't have a problem with it. But you get a lot more detail, you get a lot more of the richness, I think, of the world, and it's just an enjoyable experience, in my opinion. So, yeah, and now if you haven't seen the series, uh, I would suggest reading the books before you watch it. Mostly because it's just fun. It's fun seeing all of the different scenes being acted out. Now, the first book is a little bit slower than the other books, mostly because there aren't as many like big battles that go on. Sort of a minor spoiler is that events in this book lead to lots and lots and lots of war and battles and things like that. And so this book is more about getting to that point, but there's still a lot of exciting information and great world building. I mean, once you've read this book, you go into the other ones knowing kind of what everything is, and you can get more focused on story. And so, yeah, it's a great book. It's a great series. There are 5 of them out right now. I'm going to be going through all of them. I'm currently reading the second book, which is A Clash of Kings. This was the entire second season of Game of Thrones. They were able to fit the second book into, and so I'm going to be reading that. I'm about 242 pages into it, which is only about a fifth of the way through the book, because this book is huge. And after that, I will read A Storm of Swords, A Feast for Crows, and A Dance of Dragons. And it's very interesting right now because the show is actually getting into some of the book 4 and 5 material on some of the characters, and then, you know, the rest of season 3 is the actual book 3 material, or season 4, I guess they're in right now, but it's like the second half of book 3. It's all just very, very interesting, and I'm really excited to share it with you. I really want to encourage people to read these books because they're very, very good. Even if don't be afraid or sort of intimidated by the size of these books. They are easy to read and exciting. You'll want to read them. I mean, it might take you a couple of weeks to get through it, but it's very, very good. So I definitely recommend it. Alright, I will see you guys later. Bye.